Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts for Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. And in this episode, we discuss some interesting research from Harvard, which shows a reduction in chronic absenteeism by 10% or more. And what I enjoyed about this is its simplicity and its effectiveness, because parents underestimate the number of learning days missed by 50%. I think understanding more about what parents are thinking is really important because it can help you with effective communication with the biggest partners schools can have, namely the parents or guardians of the students. So if you're currently wrestling with what to do about chronic absenteeism, this episode is for you. I mean, who doesn't want a 10% reduction in student absenteeism? Now, some of the main topics that we're going to be covering include things like, this is a really practical, relational approach to communication that's supportive, not blaming. And secondly, letting parents know their child's absences relative to the class or school can actually make a difference. That's what this research shows. At the end of this episode, be sure to visit our website at www.restorative.ca. Drop me an email to stan@restorative.ca. Now let's head over to the discussion with Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. So we're looking at some research which kind of backs up what we intuitively feel is common sense, and that is letting parents know and keeping parents involved in the actual tracking of attendance can actually reduce chronic absenteeism by 10%. Who knew, right? That communication could be that effective.
I think we always assume a parent knows when their child isn't at school, so they're taking responsibility for that. But I think what this is really talking about is that understanding the accumulate. You don't know you're thinking in the day or the month. You're not thinking of how that's accumulated over the semester.
Yeah, the premise of this article isn't so much that absence could cause school failure later on, or chronic absences can lead to some problems later. The premise of this article is that parents are misinformed, or they have this misbelief about how much absence their child actually has. They seem to underestimate it by quite a bit. In fact, the article talks about, in one study, they underestimated it by about half. And so it's really about letting parents know that absences are starting to build. Their child's attendance has a pattern. And it's that communication piece that we sometimes fall down on quite. I mean, we wait until they've reached 10 days before we send them a letter home. Well, closing the barn door after the horse is gone kind of a thing, right? We need to start letting them know sooner, because parents will, and I've had many of these conversations with parents, just, what do you mean it's 10 days? I can't believe it. Prove it to me. And they think it might be 4 or 5. And so you go through the days with them. They go, well, I guess you're right. So they really, as you say, Shelley, it's sort of, they live in the day and they don't really add up the cumulative bit. And so it's really about letting them know. And that's the premise of this article, is letting parents know that the attendance is becoming problematic before it becomes hugely problematic.
And in elementary school, particularly, in primary grades especially, parents are the biggest factor in whether or not their child comes to school or not. And so to make sure that we have good, positive connections with them, not ones that are punitive, that we're actually working with them. And here comes that, the social discipline window of restorative practice, that we're actually, being very firm and very fair. We're offering them support. And this regular communication about where things are actually at really fits that criteria of being firm and fair.
Right. It's really is that parent school partnership, isn't it? And not only picking and choosing when we want that to come into play. They are the biggest determinant, and we know the early habits are set in from kindergarten on. And if they're struggling with getting their student to school, how can we support that? Because it is just going to continue. Part of that is sometimes educating the parent either on the number of absences, what help is available. If they feel like they're a partner, they're more likely to reach out to the school to say, I'm really having a hard time getting him there every morning. And they're going to
And
start that discussion.
further to that point, Shelley, letting parents know, the article talks about that, letting parents know the relative absences compared to the rest of the school.
Right.
My child's only been absent 8 times. Well, but the average of the school is 3 or 3.2 or whatever it is. Letting them know in relation to what everybody else is. And then that data starts to hit home with parents a little bit more because, as you say, Stan, they're the ones that determine whether their children come to school on a continuous basis or not. We don't have control over that, but they need to know that, a lot of parents will say, well, all kids miss school. What's the big deal? A lot of kids miss school. Okay, we'll tell you how many kids are missing school, what the average is, and where your child is in relation to that. And that tells a big story. Parents are suddenly starting to think, oh my goodness, something's going on here. But the other point I wanted to make, when you talk about parents not knowing, um, in this day and age, we've got parents that are both parents are working. We've got, split families, combined families, all this kind of thing. And I've had, you know, people thinking their kids at school because when they're with the other parent for a week at a time and a week with this parent, they don't know what's happening when they're with the other parent. Or what do you mean they didn't get to school today? When I left the house, they were packing, getting ready to go. If they just don't know because they're leading busy lives. And so there is a lot of misunderstanding about their students' absences and whether they're at school. Because one parent always gets the phone call, and the other one never does, kind of thing.
So we're making some connections in terms of being firm and fair with restorative practice. What's a practical thing that we can suggest in order to help people implement this using restorative practices?
I think that is key. And I was going to speak to that, Stan, was the firm and fair. Yes, you provide the data, but it's not in a way to say, get your act together. It's that here's the information, but then the fair part is, what can we do to support you? And maybe they're going to say, this is all I needed to have a conversation now, or you might have opened up another conversation. But it doesn't just go with, here's the data, your kid's missing a lot of school. We need to have the supportive piece come in with it. And that's the firm but fair.
As an administrator, you might be the one making a lot of those phone calls. It could be classroom teachers, absolutely. Let them know that those early phone calls make a difference too. But it could be an administrator suddenly picks up the ball on those chronically absent. The teacher's been trying, nothing's working. It's what's the relationship you've got with that family? And to your point, Shelley, we're here to help you. We're here to help your child. We're not here to blame you. The studies all show that when you take that punitive approach to attendance, it doesn't make a difference. In fact, it probably makes it worse. So we have to take that more restorative approach of, we're here to work with you. How can we help your child to be more successful in getting to school on time or getting to school at all? And so over time, as an administrator, you start to build those relationships with those people. And it does make a difference, especially when you got families of kids, a family of 3, 4, 5 kids, and you're dealing with child number 1, and number 2 is coming in next year, and number 3 is down the line, and you're starting to build that whole family relationship with them.
What I like about this research too is that it's about empowering parents and building connections with them. And the research is very, very clear. This makes a difference and can make a difference of up to 10% in terms of attendance, but it's not the only thing. It's something that works in connection with and in complement with other strategies for more chronically absent students and situations. Parents today lead very busy lives and often underestimate how many days their children have missed school for a variety of reasons. Effective and personalized communication is a great example in this research of being firm, and the support you offer parents is a way of being fair. Firm and fair. It's a way of communicating with parents that builds relationships and impacts attendance. Want to find out more about our work? Check out www.restorative.ca. Send me an email, stan@restorative.ca, and let's make the time to be firm and fair with the very, very busy parents in our schools. Research says it'll make a difference.